Hi there, good day and welcome to this video. So if you are seeing this video, it means that you actually joined the link for my poetry workshop. Maybe you are on my website and you're on the particular page of the poetry workshop. This is a free class, this is a free video, and let's get right into it. But before I go into that, I want to make you understand that this workshop is actually powered by Cravinkminds. And what is Cravinkminds all about? It's actually a website that aims at building a global community of strong and impassioned writers who really know how to write and who are trained, to pursue a successful writing career while equipping themselves with the knowledge and the skills to make money from writing. So Cravinkminds is a writing brand. That is what we do. We help people know how to write and we help them love the activity of writing, but also giving them opportunities where they can make money from writing. And also I am the innovator of Cravinkminds. And let's just get into the class. So first of all, who am I? My name is Adewale Joel. I am a writer and poet with a ear for literary criticism and jazz music. I am the innovator of this community. I am published in 2 anthologies based in India, Double Shades and Midnight Thoughts. This is somebody from India actually talking about my write-up. Said I am the co-author of Beats of Art, You Write Very Well. I'm working in a new anthology on spoken words. It would be great if a writer like you can spill some words to motivate people. It would be very nice if you give a positive response. This person read my write-up somewhere and she wanted me to write in an anthology. This is another person from India and she says, "Hey dear, I love the content in the anthology Midnight Thoughts." She read my write-up in an anthology I published. I co-authored with people and she's saying that she wants me to actually also feature in her work. So that is all on me. If you really want to know more about me, you can just read my profile on Goodreads and you probably might be able to satisfy your curiosity. So then let's get into this workshop. What are the testimonials? I'll be showing you some testimonials of past workshops that I've actually held. Now this is from Poetry Workshop 6. This is someone saying, "I am grateful to you, sir Joel Adewale. It has really been a mind-blowing experience. In 3 days, I have grown into producing a better writing than I used to. Thanks a lot, sir. More grace." This is from the same Poetry Workshop. Someone saying, "Mine was pleasant. I look forward to attending it. Your method of teaching is satisfactory, and above all, I commend your openness even in the selection of winners." This is somebody also talking about the class. Said she likes the fact that it was interactive. This is somebody saying, "The journey was awesome. It really helped expand my knowledge on poetry. I'm glad I didn't miss this wonderful opportunity." Somebody also talking about the workshop, one of the workshops that I actually had, I think this poetry workshop 2. He said, "I'm surprised. I didn't really expect this. I'm grateful to everyone, mostly our wonderful teacher. I felt like this workshop should not end." So this basically is a workshop on poetry. Just know that, and this is the free class that will help you to really know more about poetry and that will help you to understand the full scope of what this workshop is about. So I've talked about myself briefly because I don't want to waste your time, and I'm quickly rushing through the testimonials because that's not the emphasis, but this is just so that you know that you are in safe hands. Okay, this is somebody saying, "Thank you for the training. It's been a blessed ride. More instinct, sir." This is another person. "Good night, coach. Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed the class." This is another one entirely. "You have done more." Okay, I said, "Let me know when you are done with this video." Okay, I think I have basically helped you understand poetry, and this person said, "No, I have actually done more than that." This someone else saying, "This is more than mind-blowing. I'm really intoxicated into poetry. Coach, you are indeed awesome." Is somebody saying that okay, thanks to Joel Adewale for the exciting class and for the opportunity to actually learn. The class really, okay, I think the person meant to say the class really was an educative one and an eye-opener. Alright, this is somebody saying, "Coach, before I say anything, I want to let you know that I admire your teaching method. You are not in a haste to work with your students and many more. For today's class, I really enjoyed it." This is somebody saying, "Coach, this workshop is indeed a working shop. I just wish we continue working on this using ground. Anything that has a beginning should equally have an end. On a serious note, coach, I received more than what I anticipated. The workshop was worthwhile. I'm beginning to miss it already." So this is just to make you aware that the workshop is not just starting. It has been for a couple of months and it has been generating awesome testimonials, and people have been satisfied with what the value they get in the workshop. Now let's get to the workshop itself. What is the goal of the workshop? Now, number one goal that you find in the workshop is actually to make you a better poet. So at the end of this whole workshop, what's going to happen is that you are going to become a better poet. Number two is you are going to understand how to affect human emotions with written words. So in case you've been writing poems and your poems have not exactly be that strong, many people join the poetry workshop. The poetry workshop as an assessment, in the sense that people are always told to submit, to send their submissions to an email address, and I always give criticism, and I used to give professional reviews, and many of them begin to realize that there are some things about poetry that they were never even told. And that way too, I began to see that there are some ways people write that it's not actually exactly true. Well, I knew that before I started the workshop, but then it became more obvious actually. So this workshop will help you see that there are many things about poetry that you never really thought of, that you do not even think, and you might even find some of them during this free class as well. And what is going to happen in the long run is it will help you to understand the things that you really need to know about poetry, and you will know how to really write better. Number two is it will help you to understand how to affect human emotions with written words. Poetry is an art form that appeals to emotions, and that is the advantage that a poet has. You should be able to write to persuade people to carry out and to take certain actions, and you should be able to write to influence their actions, and you should be able to touch their hearts with your words as well. These are the things that will happen to you if you give yourself fully to this workshop. Number three is you are going to learn how to write really good poems. I mean true poems that are really true poems. There was a time somebody actually joined my poetry workshop, and during the submission, it was a very interesting class, one of the best poetry workshop classes I ever actually took. And there were some submissions I saw one particular person that she was not really that strong in poetry, but then she really began to develop and to increase in the way she writes poems, because of the fact that she gave herself to questioning me on what I meant by certain terminologies, and what I actually meant by marking down some things that she actually felt were good enough, for instance. So those things actually help her to realize the essence of poetry and how to really write good poems. So these are the things that will happen in this workshop. Number four is you are going to understand how to create strong sentences. These are the goals of the workshop. Now, I also forgot to add that you will know how to. This workshop will also affect the way you begin to speak as an individual, because if you know how to affect human emotions, you begin to speak in ways that will touch people, and that will affect them. So it should also improve your oratory skills as well. And this number two reason where I explained that to help you understand how to affect human emotions with written words, it will also affect the way you make sales. If you are somebody who sells, and if you have a product, if you have a brand, it means that you are a copywriter, because you always be writing things like, buy my product now, I am doing a discount. For instance, let's say you are not very good at copywriting because you don't know that is copywriting. You might be writing simple things that might not get good results, like maybe buying my product, click the link below, like, share, comment and subscribe, those kind of things. But then that's copywriting, and people might not really respond because you are not appealing to their emotions. This is one of the things that should happen to you when you give yourself to this poetry workshop. You really understand how to touch emotions. You really understand how to touch people's emotions with your written words. That also means that you will get more results as a copywriter by giving yourself to this poetry workshop. Alright, let's move on. So what is poetry? Now, number one thing you need to know is that poetry is, now if I ask you what is poetry, I'm going to imagine some people are going to say this: poetry is a genre of literature that writes words in lines and stanzas. People define it that way. Or you might say poetry is an art form that is composed in lines and stanzas. It's not as if those are wrong definitions, but then that definition does not capture what poetry is. Poetry is an art of purging the emotions. Now, do you know that if you were sitting in your room, now think, and you were sitting, and maybe you were holding a thin cane, something that is not very thick, and someone walks up to you and he tells you that it tells you something that is very sad, something that makes you angry, or something that makes you sad, most likely you are going to break that cane, or you are going to slam your hand on the table, or you are going to pull your head backwards, and you might sigh. Those reactions are spontaneous. It's not like you are controlling it, they just come spontaneously. Now, do you know, if you are in the university, and they just released the result, and you are just walking around, and maybe you checked your e-portal and you just saw your results and you found A's all through, and maybe you are among friends, you just shout, you just scream, you just jump up. Then when you've done that, you now realize that, wow, I need to calm down, let me try to compose myself. That was a spontaneous reaction. It's not like you controlled it, it just came out spontaneously. That is poetry. How? Because what you were trying to do was to purge your emotions. Poetry is an art of purging the emotions. Remember, poetry is an art of purging the emotions. Now let's take it a step higher. Have you noticed that when you attend programs, have you noticed that when you attend church programs and they are singing a song, and everyone is singing together, there is this form of emotional bond that is created, and so everyone becomes elevated in the mood of the song. That is because that song is poetry. Hymns, when you sing hymns in churches, that's just poetry too. Hymns are poems as well. What's just happening is that there is a connection in emotion, and that is why there's that feeling of ease, there's that feeling. That's why some of the time when you are feeling bad and you are depressed, maybe you just see that it's more likely that you start singing a song, and that makes you feel better. Why? Because you are actually purging your emotions. So that is how poetry is. Poetry is actually a means of purging the emotions. Now, I like to use this example in the poetry workshop. There was a time when this if you are in Nigeria and you are watching this, there was a time when this NSAS actually occurred in Nigeria, and that particular night some Nigerians were in Lekki, and they put off all the lights, and they were going to shoot down, they were going to gun down the Nigerians. I saw the video. When I saw the video, I was emotional and I was teary, I was crying. I didn't know I would cry actually, but then I actually cried. So they put off all the lights, and those Nigerian youth were there, and what happened? They were all singing the national anthem. Now when I watched that video, the way they sang the national anthem had this emotional aura, and that was what made me shed tears. What happened there? The emotion that they expressed appealed to my own emotions, and it affected me. It affected my own actions, it affected my reaction. That's how poetry is, and that is what poetry is. Now let me help you to see how this is poetry as well. The reason why they were singing in that state was because they knew they were going to die. They knew there was no escape route for them. So what did they do? They began to sing, and because of that, they were doing it together. Their emotions were connected. That is why it had that emotional weight, it had that mood that made me cry, and it had that mood that made you feel like this is patriotism. That is what you see in poetry. Virtually everything that carries that emotional attachment is just poetry, and particularly when people are doing it together, you begin to see the connections of emotions among individuals, and that is what creates the reactions that we have, maybe the reactions of tears, the reactions of joy. That is poetry. So poetry is an art that relates to emotions, and poetry is an art of purging the emotions. Now when you understand that poetry is an art of purging the emotions, you will now see that virtually everything around you is poetry. Why? Because people react based on the emotions that they have within them. So if somebody is writing a poem, it might be like he is not satisfied with the way things are happening around him. So what does he want to do? He writes a poem to express his emotional feelings of maybe anger, of displeasures. That is how poetry is. Now you need to see that in this definition I said one thing. I said poetry is an art. Remember, it is an art, it is creativity itself, and it is purging the emotions. So poetry is a means of purging the emotions, but in the manner in which it will purge the emotions will now be an art form. That is why instead of, when somebody walks up to you and it tells you something that is sad and you break a cane you are holding, that is poetry, but it is not exactly an art form yet. Now when somebody now decides to now write a poem to express his sadness about what he was told, that is when you now see it as an art. So you now see that poetry is an art form for doing what? For purging the emotions. If you also noticed, let's go back to this NSAS example. Do you notice that around that time, if you are a poet, actually, if you give yourself to poetry, you will see that all over social media many people were writing poems, lots of poems on NSAS and Nigeria. Why? Because that was the what was at the center of the emotions of Nigerians at that time. So people had to express their emotions. They needed to purge out this emotional displeasure, this emotional anger, and the means of doing that was to write a poem. That is poetry. So as you've seen now, poetry is not as you have been thinking. Maybe you've been thinking that poetry is just lines and stanzas. No, because when we are talking about this, when we are talking about the singing of national anthem, for instance, that is an art, but that is not lines and stanzas, in case you do not know. For instance, let's talk about spoken word poetry. Let's talk about slam poetry. Slam poetry is the kind of poetry that Black Americans actually do, and it carries this heavy element of demonstration, of spoken words performance, and that is actually poetry. And it is not just lines and stanzas. In fact, let's go to Africa, and let's go to our past. Do you know that in Africa we actually had poetry? How can I say this? Because we had oriki. If you are a writer or you are a reader, if you've been reading all this literature that are related to Africa or Africans, you see that if you are reading their stories and maybe there's a man and a woman who are lovers and the man offends the woman and the woman is angry, the man will now start singing he'll be saying some words. They are like a song, and he might maybe dance with that song, and the song will be trying to maybe plead to his lover that he loves her, she should not be annoyed. For instance, there's this text Efuru, and that's what happened in that text. This other book, I Will Marry When I Want by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Sorry, I read a lot anyway, but I think these are examples that might help you understand better. That's what you find there. When the lover is angry, the other counterpart will now sing a song to appeal to the emotions of that individual, and that was poetry. And those days we were not thinking anything about lines and stanzas. Now let's even go away from that. Do you know that when you were little and you grew up, maybe your mom offended you and she really did something that made you angry, and she wanted to be at your good side. Maybe she wanted you to be happy, or she wanted to lift up your mood. She's going to sing a song, or she might do a panegyric. A panegyric is oriki. How many of you grew up that way? I know some of you would. So that panegyric or that oriki that she's telling you to praise you, it's actually poetry. Just know it's poetry. And then it's not like they were thinking about lines and stanzas. So you see that poetry had always been, and what happens is poetry has been a means of purging human emotions. So I want you to understand this, and when you understand this, it will change your perspective about things. You begin to see that everything around you relates to poetry, because humans interact with themselves based on the emotions that they have within them, and they react based on the emotional state that they have within them. And if that is the case, somebody who is given to poetry will really begin to master how the true emotions that is behind everyone's actions, and they will begin to master how to influence that emotions to get certain actions and reactions. Next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk about the irrelevance of poetry. So in case you are a poet, you might have been writing poems, or you've not really seen that poetry is very relevant to you, to the society, and to humanity. In this class, I'm going to also show you that. Now let's get right into it. Number one, it is because poetry is inevitable. Poetry is inevitable. How? Because poetry is a means of purging emotions. Humans will always want to purge their emotions. Every action that is to purge the emotions is poetry. It is just that people now begin to write it in a way or to present it in an art form that can be officially accepted as poetry. If you are doing something that just portrays your emotions, it is poetry as well. So that is why it is inevitable, because humans will always have feelings of anger, feelings of sadness, feelings of joy, feelings of happiness, feelings of pleasure, feelings of displeasure, and these are things that will remain in humanity, and they will always need to express this, and that is poetry. Do you know, if you were in an interview and you are sitting before the person that is going to interview you and is talking to you and is asking you questions and you are giving a feedback, do you know that the reactions he's going to give, maybe on his facial expressions or on his body language, through his body language, will actually express his displeasure, his pleasure, or his satisfaction or dissatisfaction? Do you know that? Now, the person who is a poet might not, an ordinary person rather, might not be able to see these particular reactions clearly, but then somebody who is a poet will know that this is the reaction he's actually getting. Why? Because this is what it does on a daily basis. What it does on a daily basis is to interact with human emotions, to express human emotions, and to work on it. So he will see that this is what is playing out before him. This will also help that poet to be able to navigate around that scenario for his own benefit. So you just need to understand that poetry is inevitable. It is in everything, because every human interaction is all about expressing his emotions. That is why poetry is relevant. Number 2 is, poetry is relevant because it is the best writing form that helps to train you on how to influence, how to affect, and how to express human emotions. There are many forms of writing. There is creative writing, there is content writing, there is ghost writing is just writing for other people. There's academic writing, there's journalistic writing. Under creative writing, the best subgenre under creative writing that will help you to train how to influence and affect human emotions is poetry. If we are talking about prose does that, but not in the emphatic sense. Even play performances, they do that, but they do not do it in the emphatic sense. Then when we are talking about other forms of writing are simply borrowing from copywriting and from creative writing. In case you don't know, copywriting is borrowing the art of emotions from creative writing. Copywriting is borrowing storytelling from creative writing. Content writing is borrowing creation of characters from creative writing. It is borrowing grammar from creative writing, and it is borrowing storytelling as well from creative writing. But then in creative writing itself, the major form that will help you to really know how to master and affect human emotions is poetry. Why? Because what poetry deals with is interacting with human emotions. This will begin to affect the way you reason, and this will begin to affect the way you write. Number 3, it is relevant because it increases your intelligence quotient. Why and how? Because to write poems requires you to think hard and long. If you keep giving yourself to it, over time you begin to get more intelligent, because for you to write a poem that will express a message that you can express in 1,000 words, and you are writing that same message in 20 words, for you to do that you need to be really intelligent. And when you are doing this and you are getting better at it, you become more intelligent. That is just it. The 4th reason is that it makes you a better speaker. If you give yourself to poetry, you know how to influence human emotions. Do you know that the reason why people say someone speaks well is not just because the person is articulate? It is actually because the way the person talks appeals to their emotions. Wait, have you tried to notice that there are some people who speak correct English, but then you just hate the way they talk, because the way they talk does not even make you happy? It's just like they speak in a stupid manner. They say stupid things. There are people like that. No one is going to consider them as a good speaker. But those people who they say they are good speakers, it's not just because they have good grammar or they have good their words are very grammatical. It's actually because when they talk, they know how to touch the emotions of the hearer. That is poetry. So when you give yourself to poetry, you will know how to affect human emotions, and you'll be a better speaker. Number 5 is that Poetry is relevant because you get results from sales. In case I believe, even if you think you are not a seller, you are selling something, you should have a product. Even if you think you don't have a product, you yourself, you are a brand yourself, and you are, every time you are talking to somebody, every time you are interacting with somebody new, what you are doing is you are selling yourself to that person. The way you project yourself will determine how well the person will want to patronize you, or how well the person will buy into your idea to maybe recommend you in the future for something. So poetry can help you project yourself and can help you make sales. Now let's now say you are now selling a product. If you are selling a product, you will know how to appeal to the emotions of your customers more. That is poetry. So if you are writing copywriting, you will know how to write copies that convert more. That is poetry. Now, so if you want to now let's move on to how poetry helps you achieve this. I'm going to explain how poetry helps you achieve all these things that I have said in the next slide. Now, how does poetry help you achieve everything? Because you might be like, wow, I didn't even know that this is possible in poetry. Me, I've just been writing poems and enjoying myself because I like to write poetry. But then, how is it true? How is what this dude is saying true? The first way it is true is because in poetry there is the emphasis on human emotions. If poetry is about appealing to human emotions, then you'll be able to actually achieve all these things. Why? Because what you are basically doing is human emotions. Number two is that in poetry you will learn how to write strong sentences, because of there is something called the language of poetry. The language of poetry is not the language you use in prose or in other forms of writing. The language of poetry is unique. It does not mean that you are not using the same words actually, but it just means that the way a poet will begin to view words will be higher and deeper than a normal individual. So this is how it's going to help you achieve intelligence, how it will help you achieve making sales, and many of the other things I had mentioned. The third reason is because of the elements of poetry. The elements of poetry itself can help you achieve this. One of such elements is that poetry is laconic. What that means is poetry is brief and straight to the point. If you want to express a message, you can use 1,000 words, you can use 5,000, 50,000 words, 100, 200, 300 pages to express that same message. But in poetry, you will just be using 20 words, 30 words, 50 words, maybe a maximum of 2 pages, 3 pages, and then you are still expressing the same amount of information and message that you would normally express with thousands of words. That would mean that the poet will know how to express ideas in the fastest amount of time possible and with the smallest amount of time possible. So how do you think this will not help you become a better writer? And how do you think this will not even help you become a copywriter? People don't like to read things that are long. In case you don't know, maybe you post things on social media. Maybe why people are not reading your articles is because your paragraphs are just so long. Now, if you are a poet, you know how to write with the smallest number of words and still get results. So there are other reasons actually, but then in the workshop you find out how all these things can be achieved through poetry. So I'm going to say welcome to the workshop. I have basically done a very explanatory video on what poetry is, the benefit you get in being a good poet, and the relevance of poetry to you, to your customers, and to your society. So welcome to the workshop. What is this workshop about? This workshop is going to be a 3-day workshop that will help you to understand poetry better. This is just a short teaching, but then in this workshop you have access to 7 to 8 hours of teaching that will make you a better poet. Number 2 is, in this workshop there will be assessment in the workshop, so you'll be told to actually write poems and you get reviews and you get feedback, and this is what will make me able to help you, because I actually do not subscribe to the idea of just teaching people and letting them go without seeing that they actually improve. That is why in every Cravinkminds creative writing program or any creative writing, any writing training course we do, we make sure that people actually write and we talk about their writing, this is how we see them improve. So because the brand is all about building writers and helping writers become successful and helping writers write better. So you when you actually send your submissions, you get a professional review, and you receive the review, and this will help you adjust the way you write. This will help you write better. And also, when you keep sending your submissions, the best submission will be awarded the grand prize. Now, so what do we find in the workshop? Let's move into that. What do you get in the workshop? Number one, when you register for this workshop, you get $5 registration bonus. For registering, I'm going to be giving you a gift that is worth $5. It means it's actually worth more than $5. It just means if I were to give you that gift on a usual basis, I will charge you that amount to actually just to give it to you. And also, you get 7 to 8 hours of pure unscripted teachings. For 7 to 8 hours, you'll be taught. Unscripted teachings means that I am not recording the teaching before. I'm coming to teach you purely. It's not like I am planning it. I am coming to teach you purely. So it will be spontaneous and it will be effective. That's how the teachings have been, and that's how they've been powerful. Because I do not just write and type and just send you. I've attended some online courses and I just see that they just write everything and they'll just be sending. They just lock the group and they keep sending and sending and sending, and people just read and read the same thing they sent here. If you register again, the same thing you are reading. If you register again, the same thing you are reading. And I do not do that. Everything you will be getting in the workshop is going to be new and it's going to be pure and it's going to be unscripted, meaning that it's not like I'm writing it and I'm reshuffling it. It's me teaching from my head, and you actually see that there's a lot of value that you get. The third thing you are going to get in the workshop is you'll be getting access to Cravinkminds annual awards. That means for participating in the workshop, you'll be eligible for our annual awards. That means that you'll be granted a space on one of our platforms to always write, and also I'll be talking about your writings. I'll be helping you improve every time I see your write-up on that platform. And then at the end of the year, I pick the best write-up on that platform and I award a cash prize to the winner, to the person who wrote that write-up. Then another thing you get in this workshop is there are 3 days of professionally reviewing your poems and helping you to write better poems. As I've said, this workshop is not just attend this workshop and just listen and watch videos. Well, in case that's what you want to do, you can do that, but then I'm not going to assure you that you really improve by doing that. If you really want to improve, put it in your mind that you are going to attend a rigorous workshop with series of materials and videos as well that will help you to write better and that will practicalize the habit of writing great poems with you. The other thing you get in this workshop is the best submission is going to be awarded a cash prize, a grand prize worth $78. So I'll be giving a grand prize worth $78 to the winner of this, to the best submission, to the writer of the best submission in this workshop. Then the last thing is there's going to be lifetime support. So that means that every time you can always ask me questions. I'll always be ready to assist you. And of course, when you join that platform, as I said, everything you write there will always be responded to and you always get feedback. And there's no way you will not increase, there's no way you will not improve as a poet and as a writer. Now having said this, how do you actually register? The registration is not free. This free class is free, you don't pay anything for it, but the real workshop, the full workshop is not free. It's just $2. That's 1,000 naira only. That's all you're paying. You're not paying anything else. Once you pay it, you have access to the workshop, and the date of the workshop will always be communicated to you in time. The time you are watching this video does not mean that's the time it will be starting. So in case you might have excuses that okay, I do not really have the money, I do not have the money to pay now. Yes, it's not going to happen immediately. You can watch this video, you can rewatch it later, but then if your mind is really in everything that you are getting in this workshop, I feel that money is not something that is much. If you are a Nigerian or wherever you are from, $2 is not something that is equal to the value you are getting in this workshop. When you equate it to the value you are getting from this workshop, they are not even comparable at all. But then there is a registration fee so that we can actually see seriousness in people who are participating in the workshop. So how do you actually register? If you are watching this video from our website, you will find a link in the content down below where you find a button to actually register for the workshop. If you are getting this video from a Telegram group or from a WhatsApp group, just read the content. You will find a link to actually pay for the workshop. And if you are not able to find the link, you can just send a message to the admin of the group. You'll find a way, you'll find the page to actually pay and register for the workshop. So that will be all in this free class. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching and thanks for your time so far. Have a great day.